an administrative law judge is somebody who works for an executive branch agency. So if you think about the DMV, any of these letters that you hear about the DMV, Department of Natural Resources, Department of Agriculture, any of those, they're state agencies, so they're part of the executive branch. So it's a different animal than a judicial branch judge. Like normally you can just go to court and you have a judge wearing a robe with a gavel and everything. I don't do that. It's more of just a way for people who have dealings with the agency to make sure that they're following policy correctly. So it's a lot more laid back than that. Hobbies and interests. Well, I've always been interested in government in general. It's as I said, it's part of the executive branch, so it's all based on statutes and regulations. So personality traits. I like hearing people's stories. So that comes in handy when you're listening to people present their issues and their concerns, because you have to give them a chance to speak and to explain their side of the issue. How I got here, really, I went to Westminster. Well, I graduated from Taylorsville High School. I went to Westminster College and got a degree in political science, and decided to move on with that because it's hard to get a job with a political science degree. So I went to law school. And then, so eventually I started with a department. I use a lot of reading and writing in my work. Everything is reading and writing. There's very little math, thankfully. I haven't had to do math since I took calculus in high school. Mm-hmm. One of the things I remember from law school is like the only time we ever had to use math is when we were calculating damages or our, billing hours. So math is not necessarily a big thing in my area, but of course it depends on what law you go into. With health, I'm doing a lot more medical record reviews than I ever thought I would. So I'm learning a lot more medical terminology than I expected to when I went to law school. So as far as technology use, basically just your regular Office suite, your Google products, nothing too technical. I do have to search for a lot of the terminology that is presented in medical records that I get because I don't have that background. And that's the thing with administrative law judges, because you're doing what you're looking at is mostly just agency policy. A lot of times they don't even have to be attorneys, because what the real issue is looking at the policy and understanding how the policy works in a specific case and how it kind of works in general. So some of the ALJs in the state aren't even attorneys. My particular job, the job description required me to be an attorney. So continued education. As an attorney, I have to do continued legal education. So I have to get 24 hours every 2 years. Usually half that's in person, but since COVID, you can do it all online. So it's been convenient. It's, you don't have that personal touch being in person, but it is much more convenient. As far as advancement in career, I haven't really thought about that. I've been happy in my job. I don't know if there's anywhere to go up in my administrative hearings unit, because I am one of the 2 ALJs. And so if I wanted to go into management in the department, I guess that could be a possibility, but it's not something I've considered. And there's also just leaving the department and going to either a different agency or law firm or the sort. So basically anything else you wanted to do with a law degree, I could work on that, but it hasn't been a thought I've had recently. So I see there's a hand up.
Yes, it's Mrs. Benson. I was curious, was your primary motivation for how you carved your career path, was it more to be a judge or to work for government?
I was always interested in working for government. It's kind of interesting how things happen. Mm-hmm. I think if I had ever had a plan to become an administrative law judge, it probably wouldn't have happened. It's a strange job to get.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't have said I want to be an ALJ and made it happen. It's something you kind of fall into.
Okay. And because I'm just curious, I was just telling the class before you arrived that I'm here on vacation this week, and my brother-in-law is an attorney, and he works and lives in LA. And this morning he had to be in court, but it was Zoom court, and so
Mhm.
but he's always described how his sort of ultimate end goal is to become a judge. And so, did you ever practice as an attorney? Were you working ever in that capacity, or did you go straight to being a judge?
I went after law school. I worked for the Utah Education Association.
Ah,
So, um, and that ended up still being a lot of administrative work.
uh-huh.
I'm working with like a professional practice advisory commission, and so I have not done a lot of courtroom litigation practice.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's you need more of that to be a judicial branch
Hmm.
judge,
Sure.
and of course the procedures for becoming a judge are a lot more stringent. They have commissions who have to sign off on you, and different rules apply to you. So yeah, it's even harder to become a judge than an administrative law judge.
Hmm. Interesting. And how, I mean, you kind of touched on this for a moment about how things are different for you since the pandemic.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that has changed drastically with your day to day?
Um, Caseload has gone down quite a bit because since COVID, new CMS, the federal agency that oversees Medicaid, has issued a bunch of rules saying that Medicaid can't deny people certain things. Like you can't let people or can't discharge people from nursing homes even if they no longer qualify.
Hmm.
You can't close people's Medicaid cases even if they don't qualify because during the pandemic they just wanted to make sure everybody had medical assistance.
Yeah.
And so, since what I do is I hear cases where people have been denied stuff, my caseload has dropped significantly this last year because people are
Wow.
being denied. There's nothing for me to hear.
Hmm.
So, other than that, we've just been doing just more Zoom calls and Google Meet calls, and so it's a lot of video conferences rather than in person things. But other than that, it hasn't changed all that much.
Okay, I think maybe if you don't mind, I think the kids would probably benefit from at least a little bit of an explanation about what Medicaid is and how it's different, maybe from some of the other uh, previous movements, similar in nature that have a bad rap, and if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Medicaid. What I noticed most when I first started this job is you read court cases that mention Medicaid, and the judges just despise the Social Security Act in general. It's just this labyrinthine complexity is generally the term I see. It's very, very. It's just a huge welfare act. I mean, it encompasses Medicaid specifically is Title 19, so there's various titles throughout Social Security Act. So Medicaid covers um, medical assistance for low-income individuals. It's so if you make less than a certain amount of money, then you can qualify. And if you're a certain age, and there are different programs for different stages of people. Like if you're under 21, then you're more likely to qualify with less money than, or with more money than other individuals. Just recently, with the Medicaid expansion, now adults who wouldn't have qualified before can qualify. So now more people are on Medicaid. What is it's just really just a healthcare plan.
Hmm.
And Medicaid, we have a fee for service operation. So like if you get your services strictly through Medicaid without the health plan, then that's called fee for service. We have 4 health plans that cover mostly the Wasatch Front and some areas outside the Wasatch Front. So they go through the Select Health, Health Choice, Healthy You, and Molina. So they're the ones who actually we pay them a capitation rate, and then they provide services or arrange for the provision of services. So the people who actually come before me generally are the providers who request services on behalf of their member
Hmm.
or their patient, and or they provided services and didn't get paid for one reason or another. So those are mostly what I hear are actually providers rather than the patients or the Medicaid members in particular. Um,
Do you?
or,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, do you have any idea approximately how many Utahns, for example, actually participate in Medicaid?
I used to know these numbers. It's course changed since Medicaid expansion, but I think it's close to 150,000. That number could be way off, though.
Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting to look up. Class, hint, hint.
And the surprising thing, one of the surprising things when I first started, I realized that the bulk of Medicaid funding, like the money that we spend, actually goes to the elderly population because nursing home funding is through Medicaid for low-income individuals. So it's the end of life things that are the most expensive because generally children don't require a whole lot of medical assistance. We have, of course, areas. We have like a technology dependent waiver. We have so kids with special needs or who are dependent on technology, they can get special services through a waiver program. But the bulk of the funding goes to nursing home care, which isn't what you think when you think Medicaid, because that's Medicare is for individuals 65 and older. Nevertheless, Medicaid pays for the nursing home care.
Yeah, it's very complex. I know that because I actually submitted an application on my dad's behalf several years ago, and I remember thinking, boy, if I was a senior citizen, I'm not sure I could navigate this on my own, in fact. Right. But it's very complex. So, but the students might have some questions for you whenever you're ready to take the questions from the rest of them.
Yeah, I think I'm ready. Does anybody have any burning questions about Medicaid?
Or anything related to your job?
What's your favorite part about your job?
I'm going to just say the people I work with. And that makes the job so much better. If you can get along well with others and you have like-minded goals and you all just enjoy being there, it makes the job a lot better. So the people I work with, I like where I am in my job. So like I don't have a lot of people supervising me and telling me what to do and how to do it. So it's a lot. I can make it my own. So I like that about my job.
What would you say is like your least favorite part about your job?
Probably dealing with difficult people. Some people expect a lot and don't have reasons why they think they should get it. And that's frustrating. The worst part is actually probably when I can't help people. Like they don't qualify for something, but you want them to have it, but Medicaid just simply doesn't cover it. It's not something that the program offers. And so those are hardest when it's like a parent pleading on behalf of their kid for something that Medicaid just doesn't offer. So that's probably the hardest part.
Well, I also have a question. Is this like a statewide thing or is this a national thing?
Well, Medicaid is a federal-state partnership. So the federal government has created the parameters for the program, and then every state operates their own system. So it has two layers of bureaucracy. You have to have the state layer and as well as the federal layer. So you have to follow all the laws on all the rules and all the regulations. So every state will have their own Medicaid program. Some of them, like Oklahoma, calls it Sooner Care. Like they have little names for their Medicaid program. And so in Utah, the single state agency that runs Medicaid is the Utah Department of Health. But to apply for Medicaid, you go through the Department of Workforce Services because they actually run the eligibility portion. And then my division runs the provision of services portion. It's just bureaucracy all around.
And that's, the same, all of the big sort of institutions that run the country are similar in nature, like education. You've got funding from the federal and from the state when it comes to education and running a school. And, similar to the Department of Health, similar to workforce services. And so it's a good question, though, Gavin. Anybody else?
I will just throw in one thing while we're talking about the bureaucracy. If you're ever dealing with a state agency, always write down who you talk to and when you talk to them. It might come in handy later.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down myself.
Always.
Riker, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I was just wondering how many jobs have you had throughout your life, and like
did you think that you'd be doing those in the long run, like for your whole career? Did you, like once you had before, did you realize you probably weren't gonna have those for that long?
Yeah, were they
Yeah.
stepping stones or?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I worked in temp jobs while I was in undergrad. And then when I was in law school, the summer after not like halfway through my second year, I got a job with the Attorney General's office. So I kind of thought I would end up there, but I didn't end up getting a job there. And so then I started working for the Utah Education Association. And then I had kids and I was home for a while. And so this job came up. My friend who worked there told me about it. And so I jumped at the chance. So I kind of thought I might have been at the AG's office, but just didn't end up happening. What I really wanted to do the Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel. They're the attorneys for the legislature, so they draft the bills, the legislature. But that didn't end up happening either. And I'm not sure how happy I would have been doing that. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if your plans don't work out the way you thought. Because I am pretty happy where I am.
Yeah, good question.
Have you had any other jobs before this?
And
Yeah, just the UEA job and then the Attorney General's office. And
how did that compare working in education?
it was different because, I mean, like you mentioned, it's somewhat similar in the bureaucracy. You're dealing with agencies again. It was a strange job. I think it was nice defending teachers, but it was hard defending teachers who you knew did something wrong. So in that sense, you're not really pushing for them to maintain their licensure or anything. You're just trying to give them the best due process. Mm-hmm. You're trying to make sure that they have a chance to have their side heard and get like the best. If they needed training, to get them training, to kind of make sure that the system isn't stacked against teachers, so that teachers have a chance to do their best job. If that makes sense.
So I'm just curious, did you ever, would you ever have been called upon to act on behalf of like a school or an organization like the charter board versus,
Yeah, charter schools are different because the regulations don't apply to them. Uh-huh. So most charter school teachers don't join the union because there's very little we can do for them. Uh-huh. So I think if they became members, we could do what we could, but because the regulations specifically don't apply to them, they don't have the same benefits and the rights that public teachers who are part of the union do.
Interesting.
Like the Orderly School Termination Procedures Act doesn't apply to charter school teachers, as I remember it. It's been a while.
Okay, just curious. Any other questions?
Are you currently working out?
Yes, I have been. Yes, the Department of Health is very adamant that we wouldn't have a COVID breakout at work. So we have been working from home for the past year. It's been wonderful. Yeah.
When did you know you wanted to get into law school?
Actually, when I was at undergrad at Westminster, I had a friend who got into the University of Chicago, and he said, "You should go to law school." I was like, I hadn't really thought about that, and then I thought, well, that makes sense since I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with my political science degree. So I took the LSAT, and I did well enough to get into the U, and so that's where I went.
Is there anything?
How long does each court case last about?
Well, our cases, a lot of them get resolved, as I mentioned before. So we'll get a hearing request, and the division will take a look at it first to see if they did anything wrong. If they find out that they did something wrong, then usually they'll just talk to the provider, and the provider will withdraw. Or if they just needed like a piece of paper, like some more records to look at before they could approve it. So a big majority of my cases don't even go to the pre-hearing conference level. And then the ones that do go to pre-hearing conference, if the facts are not in dispute, I can just issue a written decision. So I'll just take the matter in advisement, go over the record, and issue a written decision. That's a pretty small portion of the cases as well. But I haven't had an evidentiary hearing since COVID started. we were trying to arrange a couple, but I think the parties got too frustrated with the difficulties of arranging it that they ended up just resolving the case.
How do you know Miriana's dad?
We have been friends since high school. He was friends with my friends, and so yeah, known each other for quite some time.
And that was Taylorsville, you said?
I went to Taylorsville. He went to Murray.
Oh, okay. I live right there in Murray, so
Oh, yeah,
I'm right down the
okay.
street. And so I was going to ask if there was anything that you would have done differently along the way.
Yeah, it's always a strange. It's a thought-provoking question, because if I had done something differently, I wouldn't have ended up where I am. And as I said, I'm pretty happy where I am. So it's kind of
nothing that like maybe
playing with those tying. You pull that thread, you don't know where you're going to end up. So I can't think of anything outright that like I really botched in my life. Like I would never done that again. And there are things I would have done differently, just knowing what I know now, but I just didn't know that then. Yeah. So you kind of you have to learn things along the way and be a little bit flexible. It's good to have a plan. It's important to think ahead, but it's also important to be a little bit flexible and kind of take things as they come.
Yeah, I agree. Well, any other questions, or should we?
I just have one more. So I was wondering how, besides like working from home, how has the pandemic affected you, like in your job the most?
Well, just I haven't been able to see anybody for a year. My hearings unit is, like I said, one more ALJ and then two assistants. So we kind of had a little social distance Christmas party back in December, and that was like the last time I'd seen them. So I think it's mostly just kind of the isolation. We used to, when you go into work, you can just stop by somebody's office and talk to them. You have more staff meetings in person. We used to do a volleyball tournament every year in September, and we haven't done that. So I think it's just mostly just kind of isolation. You just don't have the connections you had before.
Mm-hmm.
But you also don't have to drive in.
Yeah, I was for a while there teaching the online class from inside the building in this interior room in our space center, and that was also very isolating. It's like I think universally people are experiencing some form of that isolation in one way or another.
Yeah.
Riker, did you have another?
No, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Well, gosh, thank you so very much for your time and for sharing with us. I think this has been incredibly informative, and hopefully the kids got the same thing out of it that I did. So,
all right. Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Marianne, did you want to say anything else? Or?
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
We really appreciate it.
See you later.
Thank you.
Tell them on stage and them I'd say hi.
I will. All right. Thanks.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Well, that was awesome, you guys. Great questions, and thank you for being here and being attentive. I'm just going to let you go now 5 minutes early to give you the 3 minutes of the 5 minutes to watch that video and answer the questions and do your assignment so you don't have homework. But great job, Mariana, putting that together for us, and awesome. You guys are dismissed. I'm going to go back to the beach.
Thank you. See you.
Bye. See you at coding. Bye.